Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Ken Clark, founder of semiprivatepractice.com, licensed marriage family therapist, and also a founder of a large group practice. Welcome back to another messy Facebook Live where I am just kind of talking through over the next 30 days or so our core company values. These are things that show up on our company value statement that we distribute to all our employees. They're hanging in our break room. They're things that we have kind of wrestled into existence and I feel like have been great guiding uh, themes for our practice. I think a lot of the success we've experienced has been based on these. So this is a little bit of reading, a little bit of rant. Hopefully, it'll help some of you wherever you are in the journey. If I stick my foot in my mouth, please shoot me an email, slap me upside the head, do whatever you need to do to hold me accountable. So today, number 4, this is one of my favorites. I think this is at the core of who we are as a practice and what we try to do different in the world. I'm going to read it to you a couple of times and then I'll unpack it and we'll get you on your way. So, principle number 4 of the Chenal family therapy, the CFT way, which is our approach to a fully embracing and fully accountable culture, is this: wrestle with your privilege. Wrestle with your privilege. No matter how hard you've had it, someone in our community wishes for what you have. It's not your fault, but it's their truth. Be the noble leader who cares about other people's fears of unfairness. Let me read it to you one more time. Wrestle with your privilege. No matter how hard you've had it, someone in our community wishes for what you have. It's not your fault, but it is their truth. Be the noble leader who cares about others' fears of unfairness. So here's the background on this. Early on in our practices journey, we were very committed, probably like a lot of people in our field, to a more equitable, just building of a company. Right? We wanted to make sure that we didn't just do anything that looked like tokenism. We wanted to make sure that all parties had fair access and fair opportunity. But we also wanted to make sure that we were really deliberate and intentional in that. So we began wrestling with how to execute on that, right? And one of the things that came up early on was this idea of training, right? DEI training, things like that. And we did some of these, and they drifted into the usual content areas, right? Ethnicity, who you love, things like that. To the extent that they became very narrow discussions, probably isolating even for the people in those discussions that were in those groups that we talked about, right? In other words, great job making them the others in the room in your performative attempt to help make the world a better place. So anyway, all that to say, we wrestled with what that looked like. I wrestle with what that looked like as a straight white male. I'm part of the oppressor class, all that kind of thing. So we were sitting in a meeting one day, and I had a couple of African American identifying women sitting in there, and one of them compared themselves to the other. Right? They talked about an us, and it was this very humbling moment to get to witness, where one of the other woman said to her, "Do not make us an us. We have one thing in common, which is how we look, but everything else is different." I didn't get to go back to grad school until later in my journey. You're young, you're beautiful, you have marriage privilege, you come from a different socioeconomic background than me. In other words, even though to the rest of the world we look the same, don't for a second, think that you don't hold an advantage over me. To which the other woman immediately fired back, right? Her version of, well, you hold advantage over me in all these ways. You're much more senior in the field. You've had these experiences. You're closer to the leadership team because you've been here longer. And it was fascinating and humbling and eye-opening to watch these two people who, in my naivety and my bias, I would have lumped probably together, and watch them differentiate and talk about privilege and fear and advantage and how that might be leveraged against them, etc. So out of that began this journey in our practice to really embrace this concept of privilege, right? And what is it? And we even moved away from having diversity discussions, which I think are very important. But we focused on, I think, what I see is really the heart of that, which is privilege. This concept of somehow you have an advantage, you hold power, and that power will be used to harm me, to look past me, to not see me. Therefore, I demand to be seen. I demand that my diversity be seen. So we began to wrestle with that as a practice, and we began to talk through privilege. And one of the things that we discovered as we unpacked that is there was so much privilege in our practice that existed in people that other people would lump together, right? All the men, all the women, everybody within the LGBTQIA community, old, young, married, whatever it is, right? Even geographic. You're from a small town in our state versus you're from the metropolitan area. In all those situations, there was somebody who was afraid of the advantage that somebody else had. They were unclear on whether or not that person was even aware of that advantage, much less would use it to harm them, to hold them back, etc. And so we began having privilege discussions where people could just identify the privilege that they felt like they were on the wrong side of, talk about it, unpack it, hopefully gain some reassurance from other people, not just that they saw it, but they were committed to not using that privilege. And likewise, those people with fears, right? They would hear back, and it was a very important thing that though you feel scared, though you feel like you're on the wrong side of privilege, you also hold privilege somehow, and that scares other people in the organization, right? Which is an eye opener for some people, right? I feel like I'm in the oppressed class. How can I possibly be somebody that other people are scared of? It's true. There are privileges that you hold that other people don't hold. So we just began unpacking that, and it's not clean, it's not easy, it's incredibly messy, it's emotional, it's contradictory, all these things, right? But in our willingness to go there and wrestle with what privilege is, right? Not simply accept or come to see, but wrestle, because it's hard. I've got to force this truth into me that part of my brain does not want to accept. As we began to wrestle with that, our culture began to change. We became someplace that was known as being much more life giving, empowering, safe than we had been before when we were very deliberately trying to be those things. So that's my admonition for you today, like is to wrestle with privilege, right? To look in the mirror and figure out what advantages do I hold, whether or not you ask for them, whether or not you think they're overvalued by other people. What advantages do you hold, and how does that scare other people, right? How does that induce fear? And the idea here is it's not your fault that you hold privilege, but it is your obligation to experience and to hear this other person's truth, that they've been on the wrong side of that privilege, right? So that to me is the liberating thing at the part of this that allows us to all lean in, is privilege is not your fault, but it is somebody else's truth. And the gift that we give them is wrestling with it, not swatting it away, not denying it, not minimizing it, not providing data grenades back about how we're not the embodiment of their fear. But we wrestle in front of them with what they bring. And then hopefully the mutually accountable embracing culture is that they'll do the same if it's there for us. So that's what I want to leave you with today. That's what I want you to look at within your practice, within your business, even if you're not in my industry. As you look at this concept of privilege, look at it, see it as the center of probably some of what is missing in the DEI movement, right? Which is very, very important. But look at it and try and figure out, how are we blind to the fear that comes naturally built into who we are, how we present in the world. What privilege do we hold? What advantage? And wrestle as an act of love, an act of caring, an act of common humanity with how that privilege induces fear with other folks. I'm sure this is a contentious issue. I'm sure you have a million thoughts. I'm sure there's people that look differently, love differently than me, that have some corrective things I need to hear on that. So please put them in the chat, put them in the YouTube comments, whatever. We're going to do another 30 days or so of these. So please keep tuning in. Please give us a subscribe on YouTube. Please share this if it's relevant within your practice. Please be sure and go check out our new conference. It's called the POW Conference, POW Conference.com, Practice Operations and Workflow. It's our new annual conference where we talk through things like this and operational difficulties and things like that. So for myself and all the other folks at semiprivatepractice.com, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back later today, tomorrow with a few more of these. Take care.